Well, my life changed as a result of Obama, just like yours and just like the country and the world. So let me give you a little background, a basis as to who I am and why I'm here today and how I actually got here. As I said earlier, I was a business owner. The quintessential success story. I started a technology firm in my dining room 20 years ago, and I've been blessed with a successful company. And the country started moving to the left, and more it became difficult for me to be able to compete because of the taxes and the regulations that were being imposed upon my company. And then Obama came into the picture. And I felt like if you listen to what Obama had to say, he was very clear and succinct as to what he wanted to do to the country. His comment about a transformation of America was very defined and enlightening if people just took the time to listen and think about what it was he was saying. Earlier, Connie mentioned that I'm the chairman of the board of the Cox School Business Alumni Association. We had a board meeting 6 weeks prior to the presidential election. And before the meeting started, I brought up a couple of issues about Obama. You have to realize these are very intelligent individuals, the best that the school has to offer. And as I brought up a couple of issues, they just looked at me with glassy eyes, knowing nothing about what I was talking about. These intelligent people knew nothing but hope and change. And I was flabbergasted. I mean, these are my classmates. These are people who go to school with me, that they knew nothing but hope and change. The Madison Avenue tactics to brand our future president was so successful that intelligent people across the country and across the world were falling for the nonsense that he was presenting to us because he was articulate as an auditory individual. So I went home that night and I was frustrated, and I wrote an email to these people, and I included a couple of personal friends. And it was on an issue that I thought was pertinent about the campaign, the presidential campaign. I sent it to 25 people. This was 6 weeks prior to the actual election. I sent that email out at 3 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't sleep. I haven't slept since then. I just can't, and I know you're in the same position as I am. You wake up frightened as to what's happening to our country. I sent that email out and it came back the next morning. Wayne, I didn't know that. Write us another one. And by the way, would you mind if I forward your email to a few of my friends? So it went viral. Of course I said, absolutely, send it to everyone you can. Now it's interesting how things work in life. Sometimes things happen in spite of what you're trying to accomplish. From those 25 people that I originally sent that email out at 3 o'clock in the morning, within 6 weeks, we had over 250,000 people reading my emails. Of course, during that 6-week period, we moved it from being just emails to editorials. And that is when I created the organization National Coalition for the Defense of American Sovereignty. And I think that'll give you somewhat of an insight as to where I am as an individual and what I'm frightened about is happening to our country. I do believe that there is a one world government in place, strategically in place, pushing our country and destroying our country to meet that particular objective. Now what happened was AFA, American Family Association, somehow heard about me and the Nick Das organization. And the Tea Party movement was just starting to happen. CNBC just had that first while of we need to have a Tea Party to take our country back. And they said, we're going to have a Tea Party across the country. We're helping to organize this. Would you be willing to help coordinate one in Plano? I had never done anything before. I didn't even really understand what an activist really was. But I thought about it, I went out and I mentioned it to my wife, Susan, and I said, they want us to do this, but I really don't know what I would do. Well, I guess we can make signs. So she said, well, let's go ahead and do it. So my wife and I, and my 83-year-old mother that I care for, walked out to the corner of Parker Road and Preston Road at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on tax day in 2009. And I'll be very honest with you. I actually thought I was going to be embarrassed, that I'd be standing out on the corner of the street with my silly sign saying, America bows to no foreign leaders. And my friends would drive by and honk their horn and laugh at me. I had never done anything like this before. But my wife joined me and my mom was there. And when we got out there that day, within a few minutes, a few other people walked up. And you could see by the look in their eye, they were relieved that somebody was already on the corner as well. Now, some of you probably don't recognize this because you live out in this part of the country, this part of the state, out here in this area, Dallas-Fort Worth. But that day, there were tens of thousands of individuals that came out with their signs, first-time activists, up and down Preston Road for miles. Tens of thousands of individuals. It was the most amazing patriotic event that I had ever witnessed in my life. It gave me confidence that there was a chance that we could take our country back. They all had the same mindset as we did. Patriotism, love of country, free market principles, God, our Constitution. And the signs said it. And there were so many people on Preston Road that the traffic was coming to a stop. 18-wheelers were going by, blowing their air horns to show support. It was an amazing event. And as I mentioned, sometimes you just never know what's going to happen in your life that will completely change it. That day, an individual, caucus chair for our precinct area, came up to me and said, "Wayne, have you ever considered running for office?" Are you kidding? I've made a sign. That's the first thing I've ever done. And I said, honestly, no. I mean, right now, I'm just trying to keep my company above water. And you have to recognize where I was. I had worked for 20 years to build this company. I had my heart and my soul in it. And I had visions of retirement. Near term, have a boat on the coast. The kind of dreams that we're supposed to enjoy and appreciate and be able to attain as Americans. So I said, no, I just want to keep my company going. Well, he mentioned it to my wife that day. It suddenly became a discussion point at the dinner table. And she said something to me that really resonated. She said, "Wayne, for years now, I've been hearing you complain about what's happening in the country, watching you throw your shoes at the TV. Maybe this is something that you should look into." So we thought about it, we talked about it for a couple of days, and I thought, well, why not? If not me, who? It's got to be us that takes the country back. I mean, it was tens of thousands of people up and down Preston Road, and I recognized that what my father had been saying all those years when I was just a short, young lad, that they were the silent majority, I realized we are the silent majority. So I decided, okay, let me give this a shot. A couple of days later, a few people came to our home. And they sat down with us and they started to strategize as to what it would take to run a campaign. And I'll be very honest with you, there was one individual there that just hammered on me. "Wayne, you don't have a chance to win. You know nothing about what you're doing." Everything he was saying was true. It was all honest. And he hammered on me. "You're running against," and this is key, and this ties in to why I'm here today. "You're going to be running against a 19-year incumbent, Republican, who is the chairman of the Calendars Committee." Calendars Committee is a powerful position within the House of Representatives. But I've been voting for him just like many other people. He was a Republican, 19 years. I thought he must be a good Republican. I found out different later. So we sat there, and I was basically vetted by this group that came to our house that night. Obama wasn't vetted, but I got vetted. And when they left, the guy had beat me up so bad that I thought, that's it. I said to my wife, I said, well, that was a pretty short political career. Back to business. Well, surprisingly enough, the next morning the phone rang, and they said, "Wayne, we want you to be our candidate to run against this 19-year incumbent." At that point, I started to peel back the onion somewhat and do some research as to who this individual was. And I recognized that he did not abide by the values that I believe in. He was a rhino. And you got to remember, a rhino was a term that wasn't very well known at that point. This was a new term, Republican name only. I went down and I visited with him. This is politics. This is my first lesson in politics. I went down to Austin to introduce myself. And remember, I hadn't even decided to run yet. We had just had